This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with hard rock and AOR solo artist Mitch Malloy. If I knew absolutely nothing about Mitch Malloy, how would you describe your music to me?
Oh, wow. If you knew nothing about me, I would say it's guitar-driven melodic rock. That's kind of the most general statement I could make towards it. Beatle influenced, I guess. That usually helps people, I think, because everybody knows what the Beatles are. It's like if the Beatles was now, and that's probably not accurate because God knows what that would be. That would be amazing. And I'm not sure I've reached that even gotten close to that, but no, I'm just doing people. It's funny because people ask me, how would you describe your music, or how, what are you trying to do when you make a record or whatever? And I'm just trying to be good. So yeah, it's me trying to be good.
Well, you've accomplished that with this record for sure. Your latest album, The Last Song, is out now through Sing Market. Sing Market's a bit unique than other avenues. This is a combination of physical media and blockchain digital media. So let's start with how you hooked up with Sing Market.
Yeah, that was easy. I had no intention of doing vinyl because I had looked into it and it was like, okay, so if I do vinyl, it's going to set me back possibly like 6 months even, because there's such a backlog. There's such a demand right now for vinyl, and there are not enough places doing it, right? So everybody's backlogged. So I kind of threw it out. And plus, it was really expensive. When I inquired about it, I thought, well, this is going to cost a fortune, and I'm not sure if I didn't really realize that there was a big market for it, to be honest. So Sing kind of approached me. Actually, it was on my social media. They were like, are you going to do vinyl? And I was like, no, I'm not. Thanks for asking. Thanks for confusing my fans. And then they reached out to me privately, and I know Harry, fairly well. He's been to my home in Nashville when I was still in Nashville, and I'm a huge fan of his band. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well," and he kind of explained it. And I have a really great trust in him. He's a good dude and I trust him. He's smart. And so then he introduced me to his partners, and I thought they kind of made me an offer I couldn't refuse, honestly. So I thought, what, it'd be kind of cool to do vinyl for once in my life. I had never done it. So, I kind of came along after vinyl was gone. So, or I shouldn't say I came along. I was around a long time before vinyl was gone. But by the time I got to make a record, vinyl was gone. Yeah. So here we are, vinyl.
And when you talk about Harry, you're talking about Harry Hess of Harem Scarum, who's one of the partners in Sing Market. I thought it was interesting they're taking on a new release, because so far it's just been archive releases from Harem Scarum and Andy Curran of Coney Hatch.
Yeah. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I think they, they're smart guys, right? So they looked at me, they looked at my numbers, and they thought, let's take a chance on this. I don't think we can really lose. And that's kind of how they put it to me. And so we pushed everything back. This would have been out months ago, because it's been done literally for 6 months. So yeah, so here we are doing we're in vinyl pre-release right now, and people can get that on Sing, and they can also get there from MITCHMALLOY.com, because obviously we have the link there.
And if people try to go to Sing Market or Mitch Malloy to buy the album, they're going to get a digital version of the album right away, along with a bunch of other special things like behind the scenes footage and a couple of music videos you made and things like that.
Yeah, they had all these suggestions. Again, they're smart, They said they gave me like 10 suggestions. Can you do some of these? And I'm like, let's just do all of them. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, why not? I have control of my destiny. It's like, this is my studio. I can do whatever I want. It's my record, my career. I don't have anybody telling me what to do. Yeah. So why not? So I just dug in and we did all every suggestion that they had, and it really added a lot to the bundle, and a whole bunch of people have jumped in and bought the bundle. The bundle's not cheap, but that's that's the thing, with vinyl, there's no way to do it cheap. It's just not ever going to happen right now in this state that we're at right now. It's just very expensive to do. Right. So to make that have value, you've got to give the fans all this stuff that they can't get otherwise. So they go, oh, I get that. I get a live concert. I get that. It's like there's a lot of stuff. So that gives it value and hopefully makes them, click. Buy it now.
Now, I talked to both Harry Hess and Andy Curran, who are doing campaigns like this, and they both said that there's future content that's possibly available as part of this package. So even though it's got a higher price tag, you're getting a lot in the beginning, but you're also getting stuff down the road as well.
Yeah, it's pretty cool format, and they're very progressive, forward-thinking gents, and hopefully there's stuff down the road with them. Hopefully everybody's happy and we keep doing this, and that it's exciting, and the CD by itself comes out July 7th. Yeah, so people can get that on MitchMalloy.com as well.
So you said that this album took a little while to put together, probably because you did everything on it. This is a complete DIY by Mitch Malloy. You did all the instruments, the mixing, the producing, putting it all together. So I assume that's why it took forever.
That's a fair assumption. I'm not sure that it's completely accurate, though. I think mostly because I had the luxury of time this time, I took it. I'm like, I think, this song is done. I'm going to move on, go to a different song, and I'll come back to it in 2 weeks and see with fresh ears. And I did that for every song. And so by the time I got to like the 8th song, so I think I have 8 songs done. So I need 2 more. And I wrote the 9th song, which was One of a Kind, which is the single out now. And I thought, wow, this came out great. And then things got faster because my work flow became more of a flow, because it's kind of a bit of a new workflow. I took on a lot of new gear for this record, and a lot of new software. I changed my everything. Like I went from PC to Mac, and I went from Sequoia, which was my DAW of choice, which I endorse. It's a German company, fantastic stuff. And I switched to Luna, which is Universal Audio's format, just because of the sound of it. I heard the sound of it online. I was kind of doing some research, and I was like, oh, that's the sound. Finally, somebody's done it. That's it. That's the sound that I got on my first album. That's the sound that $350,000 costs, used to cost. That's what my first album cost, a little bit more than that, actually. And I've been trying to get back to that, that kind of that benchmark of that sound. Because I'm an engineer, I'm not just a singer, right? I'm the producer, the engineer, I do everything, right? So I pay attention to all that stuff. So this company, Universal Audio, which I used to have an endorsement with back when they first started in the digital domain. But I switched. I went to this and that and the other thing. But so when I heard that, I was like, I got to have that. And that's what I did. So that was a lot of work. That was slow. learning new softwares. Anybody can relate to. Everybody's done that. In some facet of their life, they're dealing with software. And if you have to learn software, it's a bitch. And then when you've mastered a software, like I had, because I've been on software for 20 years, then I changed software. So I was like, what's going where I want? Why isn't it this easy? Yeah. So that was a bitch. Yeah.
The lyrical content of the album, a bit autobiographical.
Oh yeah. Everything is with me. I keep everything very close to home. I'm generally not making stuff up, and not just, I'm not writing stories per se. It's not kind of how I am as an artist. I'm mainly, I find that for me to be convincing, it has to be honest and real and close. You know what I mean? Like it has to be, this is what's happening. And that way people get it, I think, when they hear it, hopefully, Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the lead single that's out now, One of a Kind. What kind of life event inspired that song?
I don't know how rock and roll this is, but I think being a father makes you a completely different person, hopefully. I mean, I am a different man than I was 15 years ago before my daughter was born. So I tend to think a different way, and I am trying to be a good dad always. That's the most important thing to me, really. So I think a lot of the lyric and the approach comes from that. You know what I mean? I'm not sure I would have written that song otherwise. So yeah.
I can relate to that. I have a 15-year-old son, actually, and when
cool.
when your child's born, it's not about you anymore. It's about someone else.
Dude, the moment I saw the look on my wife's face, like I'm pregnant, my whole life changed. Right? Like something happens inside you. Like it freaked me out, actually. I was like, whoa. It's like I told my siblings, like I lost because they all have kids, I'm like, I lost my peace. they all cracked up. They're like, yeah, we get it.
Then you got the whole pregnancy period where you're planning all this stuff for when the baby arrives, and you got all this stuff to do before they get there.
Yeah.
Then they finally get there and you're like, holy shit, what do I do now?
Yeah. I remember the first time my wife had to leave town and I had the baby alone. I'm like, it's so well, where's the milk, and what time do I do that, and what, like everything's so important, right? I mean, how about like the driving home from the hospital with the baby in the car for the first time? Like, whoa, remember that?
Yeah.
Holy crap. You're like, yeah, you just become a different. I mean, it's way chill now that she's 15, I'm sure it's much easier in many regards, and then gets harder in a way, so, but she's a great kid. So far, so good, knock on wood. And, we're lucky. Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of this record has to do with life experience like that, being with my wife now for 17 years, and just everything is just different than it used to be,
Do you have another song that you're planning to release as a single off the album?
Yeah, I think Living in Paradise, which is the lead off track on the record, is going to be the next single. And it's going to be like make it as 80s and cliche as I possibly can. I want the cars and the girls and it's just like, I'm living in paradise. It's a real up song. And yeah, it's going to be fun.
So I would imagine lyrically, that's kind of what you're talking about, being a dad and having a family and whatnot.
Yeah,
I mean, that is living in paradise, not Hollywood's paradise.
No, not Hollywood's paradise, but it is a bit superficial at the same time.
Okay.
Because I moved to the beach. So I live in what I view as paradise, where I live. It's just, I'm like, pinch me every day. So, I've lived in a lot of places that were great, that I really liked. I mean, even North Dakota, growing up there, there was a lot of aspects of it that I like and still like. And then I moved to New Jersey, and there was a lot of aspects of that. That's the first time I got to be close to the beach. And, that was cool. And then New York was just a short ride, car ride away. So that was cool. And that's where I got my first record deal and all that. So that was awesome. And then I moved to Nashville. When I got there, I was like, yeah, I'm in Music City. How awesome. And that was great, And then that just ran its course. And I'd been coming down here forever. For the first time I ever was on the Gulf Coast was actually, I was on tour, and I was opening for Eddie Money. And I was on the Gulf Coast, and I was like, that was the first time I was ever here. And I was blown away. I was like, I didn't even know this place existed. Like, what is that? Like white sand and turquoise water? Like, where am I? I said to the label when I got to the gig, where am I? What is this place? They're like, we told you. And I was like, I had no clue. I was never really, good in geography in school. Saying. So, so I live in paradise. So basically that's what the song's about. The song is just about how great life is. Yeah.
Another one of my favorites from the album is using this song. It's the ballad, very poignant, very grateful on it, actually.
Yeah. That song is about my wife and my life. And I remember the night I wrote that song. It was probably 2 a.m. I was, alone here in the studio, and I just grabbed the guitar, and that just came out, and it just went poof, and it was done. And I was like, I wonder if this is as good as I think it is. It's really late, and I'm not thinking straight, but I think this is really good. I love this song. You know what I mean? It's one of those. And then sometimes you have a song that's like that, and you think to yourself, I might not ever put this on a record because it's so personal. You know what I mean? And I did consider that, but then I thought, no, I think there's a way I could do it to make it fit with the record. And I think I did that.
I have to ask, the name of the album being The Last Song, and the last song on the album being the last song. Does that indicate anything, that this might be your last recording?
I don't think I was actually thinking that. Because I'm a very practical guy, right? So the last song was called The Last Song because it was the last song that I wrote for the album. So I'd written the 9 songs, recorded the 9 songs. I had one left to do, and I picked up the guitar, and I'm like, okay, I need something that goes like, just like was vibing out on it. And I got a melody, I really liked, and then I thought, this will be the last song. And I was like, hey, maybe that's the title, but that's such a lame title. How could I make that not lame? And I was just thinking about it, and, still just writing. And it's like funny because when you write, you're in kind of like a subconscious, conscious, kind of like, it's like, this different state. At least that's where I am when I'm writing. And I've written with some of the greatest writers in the world, and they're also in that state. I could see, I got to co-write with amazing, legendary writers. And so I think we're all kind of in that place when we're writing. And I was like, oh yeah. And then it just kind of hit me like, I'm living my life like it's the last song. Oh, okay, now it works. So, and as far as it being the last record, we'll see, right? I mean, it's not like I've started a new record, so I'd say it's possible.
Are you gonna tour in support of this album?
We have plans to do some shows. It's not a full-blown tour. Not that many bands are doing that anymore. So there's definitely plans to do shows. Whether I'll be coming to your town, I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm open to it.
Nobody comes to Massachusetts anymore.
Yeah, it's been a while actually. You mentioned it.
I was thrilled that Jeff Scott Soto came a couple weeks ago because that guy never comes to Massachusetts. I'm like, oh my God, I finally get to see Jeff Scott Soto.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I go way back with Jeff. He actually sang on my first album.
I know that actually.
Oh, did you? Okay, because it wasn't credited.
Yeah, I saw him mention it somewhere.
Yeah. I've been talking about it forever. Yeah, he did great. Obviously, he came in and gave me that thing that I needed. It was great. Yeah, I'm not sure what I think he sang on anything at all in the backgrounds, and we put him on a couple of songs. We needed like a husky dude, but we had like tons of singers, so I don't remember even all of them because it was 1,000 years ago. It's a long time ago.
So do you have a regular band that plays with you when you go live, or is it something you kind of have to assemble when the time is right?
Yeah, I have kind of like guys on the list, for each instrument. I have a couple guys. Wayne Killius, who I've known since I got to Nashville, and I booked him for a session because I heard he was a great rock drummer. So we've been pals since then, basically. And when I was doing the Eddie tribute show, I thought of him, and he was amazing. He crushed it, as he does pretty much everything. I mean, to be a Nashville session guy takes an extra little bit of magic dust. Those guys, man, I don't know if you've ever been privy to any of that, but if you can bring, so say you have 3 songs you want to record. So you call up, 4 guys, 5 guys, whatever. Sometimes it's 9 guys. I mean, in Nashville, they record everybody at once. I never did that, but I did, a certain amount of people, but these guys, they come, you play them your song and they'll sit there and chart it out, and they'll be like, okay. And you're like, okay. Okay. And they go sit behind their kit or whatever, bass or guitar, whatever. And they play the song perfectly the first time. And you go, how does that work? Like, how did you get that much talent? Those guys are just on another level, and there's a whole bunch of them there. And he's one of them. So Wayne Killius, he told me like last week, he said, Mitch, I don't care what you're doing in the future, I'm your drummer, which was amazing. Because initially when I met him and he came and did the session, I was like, hey, will you be my drummer? And he was like, no. No, I'm a Nashville session guy. That's not what I do, and that's how those guys are. A lot of them don't want to go on the road. But yeah, so he's the drummer. He's the guy who played on the MMVHE, the Mitch Malloy Van Halen's Van Halen Experience show that I did. So he's the drummer. So everybody knows how amazing he is. And guitar player, I have a couple different guys in mind. I think I've settled on one. And bass players as well. I try to get certain guys, but the guys that I want are always busy because they're so good. So you have to kind of get lucky to get, that's why you have to have several, and they're all great. So whoever the band is going to be fantastic. There's no question about that. Yeah.
We're going to hit the time machine here. We're going to go back 1,000 years, like you say, back 30 years ago, actually, to your first album. It was the 30th anniversary last year, actually. It was, you signed to RCA, your self-titled debut. I mean, it must have been an exciting time, a young guy getting this big record contract and recording with these kind of music heavyweights as well.
Yeah, I had a legendary band, Mickey Curry on drums from Bryan Adams, one of my favorite drummers of all time. Could not believe he said yes. We kind of built the band around him. And we had Huey McDonald on bass, one of my favorite bass players. He's the Bon Jovi bass player, basically. And he's been with John forever and ever and ever. And and then we had CJ Vanston on keys, and CJ is very famous for his work with Toto and tons of people. He's a big producer in LA. And like that dude, like if you're lucky enough to hear him just sit down at the piano and play, he will blow your mind. Not with just like technical prowess, like notes, just musicality. Like he sits down, he plays the piano, and you're just like, oh my God, like he's on another level. So he was the piano player on keyboard player for me on the record and on Leno. And who else? Michael Thompson on guitar, big session, LA session guy from New York.
Talked to him recently, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, great guy. Yeah. I'm still friendly with all those guys. In fact, I have another project that I'm working on that I'm not really talking about yet. It's not an album, it's something else. It's a visual project. Let's just say that. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And I want Anything at All, my first single, and Our Love Will Never Die for this project. And I don't own those because Sony Music owns them, right? So Mickey Curry, the drummer, 10 years ago was on tour with Bryan Adams, and I talked him into coming to my studio in Nashville, and he played drums on for those two songs. So I've had those drum tracks for 10 years. So I'm working on those songs now, remakes of those. So yeah, just getting back to the players. I mean, he's one of my favorite drummers, and he's kind of retired now, though. I think he's not touring with Bryan anymore. But
it's a bit of magic when you record an album back in 1992 than when you record an album in 2023, where you're in a studio and you kind of got all the working parts going at the same time.
Yeah. Well, there's magic now too.
Different kind of magic.
Yeah, it's a different kind of magic. Yeah, trust me, there was a lot of magic going on this record. I had a blast. I was like, yeah. I mean, there was so much fun. I was by myself the whole time, but man, you can have fun. It's hopefully it's reflective in the music,
So not just legendary players on your debut album, some legendary songs came out of that. Anything at All, Nobody Wins the War, Our Love Will Never Die. Mm-hmm. Also sort of a legendary producer did this album. There's sort of this sort of a lore that goes with Sir Arthur Payson.
Yeah, but he is actually Arthur Payson. He is. People,
I know you've said this before. Yes.
Yeah, the people in England somehow got this idea that Arthur was Desmond, but Arthur's not Desmond. Arthur's Arthur. And Arthur was Desmond's engineer and co-producer. They produced Rat and Alice Cooper together. And that's how I met Arthur. I went to sing backgrounds on Desmond's record. He hired me to come and sing backgrounds for his major label record solo debut. And that's when I met Arthur, and I just clicked with him, and I thought he was cool. And when it was time for a producer for the record, I think maybe he was suggested to me by the label, and I was like, oh yeah, that would be great. And we talked, and he's great. We had a blast. I'm still friends with him. I hardly ever talk to him now, but yeah, he's a real guy. I don't know if you were alluding to the fact that he wasn't, but he is.
Well, there's some lore behind it, and
yeah, it's wrong though.
Well, I guess I would say taking that, is Arthur Payson his real name, or is he using a Hollywood name?
No, that's his real name.
Okay,
he's from New York.
All right,
he's a Jewish dude from New York. He's hilarious, and he's awesome. And Desmond is a whole nother thing. Desmond is Desmond, and Desmond is a freaking genius, obviously. And Desmond, wrote with me for the album. Cowboy and the Ballerina was a co-write with Desmond. And yeah, and that's when I met Desmond before the album. The label wanted me to write with him, and that's how we met. Yeah. So I haven't spoken to Desmond in ages and ages and ages, but but he was also instrumental. People don't know this because I haven't talked about it much, but he was also instrumental in the whole Van Halen thing. He was part of that. He suggested me to, or I think the story is they asked him about me. And he said, "Oh yeah," because he knew me well, from the co-writing and stuff. And he gave me the stamp of approval, basically. And I know that because he called me to tell me so. But I already knew about it. I think he thought he was calling me to tell me that I was going to be the next singer in Van Halen, but I already knew. I was like, "Yeah, awesome, thank you." But yeah, they called me, 2 weeks ago or whatever, and he was like, "I think it's going to happen." But it was really cool. And he actually suggested when things started falling apart with that, when they went on MTV with David Lee Roth, and I was like, "I don't know," and he was like, "You should write them a letter passing on the gig." I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "That's a good idea." So I had my manager do that. So yeah.
You've told your story about Van Halen on
Enough.
Most recently in Rolling Stone.
Sorry to bring it up.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. I was just going to ask, have you gotten any feedback from anybody in the Van Halen camp about your version of the story? Because I know that in rock music, people like to be secretive. They like to keep things undercover. So I was wondering if you got any feedback on your story.
No. They've been really cool. I mean, there's no pushback from them and I would honor whatever they asked. You know what I mean? Like, it's like initially, I'd said to them, "Let's keep this quiet." And they were like, "Oh, absolutely." So we were on the same page with that. And I think we've been on the same page ever since, really. I mean, I don't think I've said anything out of turn that upsets them. I have obviously full respect for them. And, I know for a fact Wolfie has been kind, about me when asked, as I've been told anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think everything is cool with them. I just try not to, step over the line with that and really honor them. And because they're Van Halen, they're like the mighty, and my story with them is just this tiny little footnote. I couldn't even believe that Rolling Stone did that feature. I didn't know they were doing it. I mean, they interviewed me for hours, but I thought it was for the story. They initially came to me and they said, "We heard that you're part of the Van Halen legacy." And I'm like, "Well, not really, but I mean, yeah, I mean, what do you want to know?" And so I told them the whole story and they were like, "Okay, cool." And that was that. And then the night before that story ran, Brian reached out and sent me a text saying, "Your piece comes out tomorrow morning." And I thought, okay, well, I wonder if I got like a sentence in there, because I thought it was going to be about Ed. And then it's about me. I was like, what? I was shocked. I still am kind of shocked, actually. Yeah.
So considering your experiences in the music industry, being a member of somebody else's band, would you do it again?
Yeah, depending upon the situation. Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in bands. That's how you make rock music, with other dudes. I mean, it's the only way to do it. I mean, just the fact that I can make a rock record by myself is weird. It's kind of weird, but it's fun, and I do it and I love it. And, I'm glad that I did it because I had a blast doing it. But yeah, when you play rock music, man, it's like 4 guys, 5 guys, and that's what you do. And it's funny because Ed had said that to me. After he had told me that I was in the band, he said to me, hours later, we were on the golf cart and he goes, "You're kind of a solo artist. Are you sure you want to be in a band?" Like he was just, nervous about it. I'm like, yes, I grew up in bands. That's all I ever wanted to do was be the lead singer of a rock band. That's all, I never wanted to be a solo artist ever, so if the right situation presented itself, I would certainly consider anything. And I get offers to do things all the time. There's all kinds of situations and things that people don't know about that I've talked about a little bit, but I generally just talk about Van Halen because that's the one that most people want to know about. But there have been other offers that were major, or not offers. Well, yeah, there've been offers and talking and, whatever. So, yeah, answer is yes. It would have to be the right situation, though.
You mentioned any of those offers.
Can I mention any of them?
Can you mention any of those offers?
Okay, I'll give you one.
I'll take it.
Okay. And I'll tell you exactly what the wording was, so I know I'm not out of bounds. Okay. The wording was, the gig is yours to lose. Okay. And you ready? Drum roll. Name of the band is Chicago.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty big. And there was another one even bigger than that, but it was never offered per se. It was just like, because I couldn't do it. I was on RCA and they told me you can't do it. So I wasn't able to say yes to that. So they never asked the question, but that was a big one. Big.
Maybe I'll get it out of you in a future interview.
Oh. Yeah. And there's also like, well, yeah, I'll stop there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's enough.
All right, Mitch, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new album is The Last Song, available through Sing Market. It's physical, it's digital, it's CD, it's vinyl. Physical.
Look at that. Look how cool it is. It's me, myself, and I.
People can go to Sing Market to get it. They can go to MITCHMALLOY.com. And I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with KNAC.com about this venture. And I learned a lot about it.
Oh, cool. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. And yeah, anytime you want to talk to me, just give me a ring.